Sarah and Angelina Grimke took a stand against slavery and for women's rights during the mid-1800s. The sisters presented powerful speeches and wrote outrageous letters about their beliefs. They laid their groundwork for the future equality of slaves and women. Sarah was born in 1792 and Angelina was born in 1805. 12 years apart, the sisters were born in South Carolina into a wealthy family. The large wealthy family with the parents John and Mary Grimke had 14 children, along with Sarah and Angelina. The family owned a large plantation and many slaves to maintain it. They began to hate how slaves were treated on their family's plantation, which later caused them to stand as abolitionists, speaking to many about their beliefs. Sarah was 5 when she first witnessed a slave being whipped. She was so upset she tried to run away and board a boat going to a slave-free place. But luckily her father was able to catch her before she could get too far. When Sarah was 12, she began to teach her personal slave Bible lessons. Her father was not happy. He threatened to beat the slave if they continued, so Sarah stopped.
I am persuaded that the rights of women, like the rights of slaves, need only to be examined to be understood and asserted.
Sarah begged her father to allow her to go to law school, but her father refused. Throughout their home, they witnessed slaves being mistreated, and it encouraged them to make a change. Growing up in a Southern household that treated slaves unfairly caused them to see the effects firsthand, making them want to change the way of others. One day, Angelina felt insulted by a slave, so her father beat the slave boy until he fell onto his knees. They always hated the fact of slave auctions, slaves being sold for money and families being split up.
If you are going to enslave African Americans, then are you willing to enslave your children?
The sisters tried to convince their family that slavery was wrong, but no one seemed to care. The sisters began to speak to small groups of both men and women. After several appearances, they began addressing bigger crowds. Their speeches to large crowds changed many minds, allowing their beliefs to spread.
We abolition women are turning the world upside down.
The activists involved in the women's rights in the 1800s were revolutionary. At the time, it was not known to show the rights they deserved. The sisters and other abolitionists were always put in danger when taking a stand. In 1821, Sarah moved to Philadelphia, and Angelina later followed in 1829. In 1821, when Sarah first moved, she joined an anti-slavery group called the Quakers. In 1829, Angelina later joined her and became a Quaker as well. In 1835, Angelina wrote a letter to William Lloyd Garrison. In their letter, she expressed her beliefs and her opinions. William Lloyd Garrison was a writer for the newspaper, The Liberator. Garrison was amazed by Angelina's letter, so he published it in The Liberator without her permission. Because of the article, the country heard Angelina's beliefs, and spreading the word resulted in people changing their actions. Angelina had no idea this would be one of the biggest impacts upon her career.
Yes, the free colored people are to be excited because public opinion is crushing them into the dust.
When the Quakers did not allow women to speak at public events, the sisters decided it was time to leave them and join an anti-slavery movement.
The most important thing I think that they did, I would say just speaking out on as a whole, because women did not speak out and they did not question the authority and they did not question men, and for the ladies to just get out and speak, whether it's against slavery, whether it's about racial equality, whether it's about women's rights issues, just for them to get out there and as a woman to do that, I would think that would be their biggest game changer in my book.
In 1837, the sisters went on a tour, speaking to large crowds in New England. During their tour, they attracted over 1,500 people. The sisters were very confident that slavery would soon be over.
I am confident not many years will roll by before the horrible traffic in human beings will be destroyed.
Sadly, the tour came to an end when Angelina became ill with typhoid fever. Angelina met fellow abolitionist Theodore Weld at a training and they fell in love. They later got married in 1838 and had 3 children, Charles, Theodore, and Sarah. Theodore Weld had sworn not to marry until slavery was abolished, but he was so in love he made an exception for Angelina. In 1838, Angelina spoke at Pennsylvania Hall. Hours after her appearance, an angry mob attacked and burnt down Pennsylvania Hall. The angry mob continued with their behavior and destroyed a black church and a black orphanage. Angelina was involved in the effort of persuading Lincoln to end slavery. Angelina Grimke made history in 1838. Angelina went to the State House in Boston to deliver petitions signed by over 20,000 women. That moment, she became the first woman to address the legislative body. The sisters starred in the anti-slavery movement. Angelina, being the writer that she was, wrote so many extraordinary letters. Many of these letters influenced people to change their ways. This led to slavery being abolished. Angelina said to the audience of over 3,000 people, "I've been exiled from the land of my birth by the sound of lash and the piteous cry of the slave." This quote showed people that Angelina witnessed slavery firsthand and that her family disapproved, which led her to move out and never return. When the sisters realized they had to fight to even speak, they became aware of their loss of women's rights.
What then can a woman do for the slave when she herself is under the feet of a man and shamed into silence?
The sisters were invited to the first Women's Rights Convention in Seneca Falls, but did not attend.
Truth will be self-evident that whatever is morally right for a man to do is morally right for a woman to do.
In 1870, the sisters, along with 42 other women, illegally casted votes in the local election as a protest.
I believe it is women's rights to have a say in laws.
The sisters were the first Americans to argue in print for legal emancipation of women.
I know nothing about man's rights or women's rights. Human rights is all that I recognize.
The sisters' last public appearance was in 1848. They retired from speaking and helped teach in Weld's school. After a long, eventful life, Sarah passed away on December 23, 1873. Angelina later died October 26, 1879. Weld spent the last months of his life writing a biography about Angelina, until later dying in 1895. Throughout their whole life, they influenced people by their speeches and letters, yet they also got to write books, documentaries, and getting people to write and sign petitions for their beliefs.
First of all, they were, of course, taking a stand for the rights of African Americans, but they were doing it in 2 different ways. First of all, they were fighting for the freedom of African Americans, but they were also fighting for racial equality, which was completely unheard of at that point in time. People up north really didn't believe in owning slaves, but they sure didn't believe that the races were equal.
Soon after the sisters took a stand, the effect was lasting. They helped protect and set free many slaves in their time. Angelina and Sarah also gave women's rights a jump start for their upcoming movements. Angelina and Sarah Grimke's actions started by allowing women to fight for their rights, and today the women are still trying to earn the proper equality that never would have begun without the sisters. The sisters lived to see the end of slavery and the beginning of women's rights movement. The sisters are legends and paved the path for the future leaders.